home of Kenny White, a recent horticulture graduate from OSU and a former employee in our gardens. But today he's joining us to share his gardens and your passion for plant breeding. Tell me a bit about how you got started with plant breeding.
It was just sort of a little fun thing to do. I love to grow things. I've always loved growing things. And the more things I grew and the more I read about it, I learned that, you know, you can do your own crosses and create your own plants. And I've read about some of the other famous breeders and I thought, you know, this could be fun and it's something that I could do easily.
And your interest in plant breeding kind of preceded your study of horticulture, right?
It did. My interest in plant breeding sort of created the desire to learn more. And that's when I decided to go back to school and learn horticulture as a profession.
Some of the species that you work with here in your landscape are peonies. I remember from our gardens that you have a love for the peonies.
I do.
And the lilies, and that's what we'll focus on today, right?
This is a regal lily, and it's a plant that's easy to see. You can see the stamens here with the bright yellow pollen on the end. The stigma is right here in the center. So some plants, and I know lilies are one of them, you can self-pollinate. So you could take the stamen off of that same plant and just rub it onto the stigma. And now you've pollinated this flower and you should get seed from this. So you should see a seed pod forming within a couple of weeks. And usually by August, this seed pod will be ripened and you can take it and break it off and plant it into your garden. You want to make sure when you harvest that you don't let it overly ripen, because the more dried out the pod becomes, the less chances you'll have of getting a seed to sprout from this.
So in addition from self-pollinating flowers, you also make crosses between different groups within the lilium, but I suppose that starts with collecting lilies, right?
It does. You have to have a group or a collection of different types. When you self a plant, you're probably going to come up with something that looks similar to what your parent did. But if you cross a plant, whatever the two parents look like, you should get some deviation of plants in between. So then it's when you become the potential for creating something different than what you had before.
Well, let's look at some of the different types of lilies you have. You said this one was a trumpet lily.
This is a trumpet lily.
Okay, he's a little top heavy.
This is an Oriental Lily.
Okay,
which
and it has
makes
the broad leaves.
The wide leaves, and it makes huge fragrant flowers that the florists use in their trade.
This is the one we see in our
flower
flower
arrangement.
arrangements.
Absolutely, everybody knows that lily.
In front of it,
this is an Asiatic Lily, which is usually a smaller type plant. They grow 2-3 feet.
Okay.
Sometimes your Oriental will get a little bit bigger.
Leaves are a bit narrower.
The leaves are quite a bit narrower. The flowers are quite a bit smaller.
Okay. You have some what I would call tiger lilies here.
These are the old-fashioned tiger lilies. They have little boobles on the sides here that these will be clones of the mother plant, so you can break those off and sprout them, and you can get seeds and start them that way without even making a cross.
But this way you're going to end up with an identical plant to the mother.
Absolutely, it would be identical to the parent.
You have another type of lily here. What's this one?
This is a plant that my mother gave to me, and she called it a Filipino Lily, which I believe is the species Lilium formosum.
Okay.
It makes huge stalks, sometimes 5 or 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
White trumpets, and it's a pretty plant, and it's fairly durable.
Now I want to point out behind it are the daylilies, and these are actually not related.
That's correct.
But the common name might confuse people.
That's the reason the common names in the horticulturists, you know, Latin names define a plant more easily than a common name. Different people have different names for common names.
But the flowers are similar where we have real prominent reproductive organs, so there's something that you can easily cross as well.
On the daylily, this would be your stamens. You have 5 stamens here, and this is the stigma, which is easily to see. And you can take plants like these and cross them fairly easily also. I haven't had very much trouble getting seeds out of any of these unless you go from a diploid plant to a tetraploid plant, which is the
number of chromosomes.
Sets of chromosomes within the plant.
So as long as you have 2 diploids, you'll be able to get a fertile seed from that.
Absolutely. It's usually easily set seed, that plant.
And you have some seedlings here from a cross you made, right?
These are some of the crosses I've made. It usually takes, I've read that you can do it in a year, but I don't, maybe in South Florida where you have 12 months growing. It usually takes about 3 years for me to get from seed to a flowering form. And you can see the different variations on some of these plants. This one is more symmetrical, and it's sort of on a horizontal plane. This daylily here is a lot more reflexed in the petals.
Right.
So you can tell, I mean, they look similar in color, but there's different distinctions. These were probably different parents.
Little different subtlety of the rippling along the edge of
Absolutely.
the petals. So you're doing this as a hobby. Do you keep records of the plant parentage?
I don't keep any records. I think that takes a little bit of the fun out of it for me as a hobbyist. I come out into the yard in the mornings, and I found the best time to make crosses is by 10 a.m. because your pollen gets desiccated from the sun and the wind later in the day. But I come out into the yard and I find whatever's flowering at the same time, 2 daylilies or 2 lilies, whatever I can find. I try to find different colors if I can get different colors, and that's how I make my crosses, and hopefully you'll come up with something unique and different than what you had with the 2 parents.
Now with the lilies, you have several different groups. Are you able to cross between those?
I have been able to cross between Asiatic and the trumpet lilies. I think I've made some crosses between the Oriental and Asiatic. Lilies are fairly easy to hybridize, as with daylilies. This is a group of seedling lilies that I've crossed here in years past, and they've gotten up to flowering size. All of these flowered this spring, and you can tell the different variations. Some are a little bit taller than others. Some have a little bit wider leaves than others.
Yeah, the leaf pattern's a little bit different on these.
And you can see on this plant here, I made another cross this spring with another lily. So it's sort of a perpetual thing. I just keep making crosses, and you never know what you'll get to create at the end. That's part of why I like doing this. I'm not very creative as far as talented. I wish I could paint. I'd love to paint, but I'm not very talented at things like that, and I realize that. So this gives me an outlet to be able to create, and you can you know, make something beautiful and make a masterpiece just by crossing from pollen to stigma.